Hello and welcome. My name is Sanjay Soni. Here is Chris to give an introduction to Azure CosmosDB JavaScript library. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Now, let's get started. Hi, Chris. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Awesome. So what do you do at Microsoft?
So I'm a developer on the CosmosDB team, and I work on the SDKs.
I see. So let's get started. What are we going to learn next few minutes?
Yeah, so we released a new JavaScript SDK in September 2018, and I want to walk you through all the great things we've done to make it not only faster and easier to use, but also use the latest and greatest features of JavaScript has to offer.
I see. So what's new in the SDK?
Yeah, so we've made a couple of really great changes to make it easier to use the SDK in the first place. Before, you had to construct URIs, which meant that you kind of understood the underlying REST model that's in Cosmos. Now what we've got is a Fluent-based model where you're able to go ahead and get a reference to a database, and then get a reference to its child container, and then get a reference to that child container's items, store procedures, etc. So it has a much more natural flow when you're writing your code. You can reuse a lot of your references and things like that.
I see.
We've also gone ahead and we've moved away from the callback-based ways of doing our asynchronous methods and switched to promises for almost everything. This allows you to go ahead and use patterns like async await inside of JavaScript and TypeScript, which allows you to have really, really nice condensed-looking code that's very easy to go ahead and read.
I see.
We've also gone ahead and rebuilt everything on top of TypeScript, including TypeScript 3.0, which makes it a lot easier not only for us to develop features and makes our life a lot better, but for customers, it ends up making it very nice to go ahead and consume features quickly because they can go ahead and get great IntelliSense, type checking, and things like that as they go along. And we've also made a concerted effort to integrate advanced JavaScript features, so things that aren't even quite yet mainstream. We're really on the cutting edge. And so we've actually got support for async iterators inside of this version of the SDK for queries. And that allows you to have a continuous stream of results that you're getting back asynchronously inside of like a for await loop. And that's really cool stuff. It's the first time I've actually got to use the async iterator feature myself. Yeah. And I think this is going to be a great intro for customers who want to learn that feature themselves as well.
Wow, that sounds exciting. So how do customers get started?
Yeah, so the first thing that you want to go ahead and do if you're a customer is you want to go ahead and check out our NPM page for the Cosmos package. We're actually now using, and we were the first package to do this, but now all of the Azure packages are doing this. We've got this @AzureCosmos package name. So before we generally had this namespace pattern of Azure dash product name, and now we're using the @Azure namespaces, which makes it really easy. You know that's an authentic Microsoft package because we're the only ones allowed to publish @Azure packages.
Okay.
Once you see this package, the easiest way of installing this is, of course, going to be to run npm install @Azure/Cosmos. And once you've run this, it'll install the Cosmos SDK for your particular project. The nice thing is if you're using newer versions of npm, it'll actually automatically save it for you when you do that.
Can you please talk a little bit about npm?
Yeah, so for people who aren't familiar, npm is the kind of the premier way of actually accessing JavaScript libraries, both for Node.js and browser-based development. So that's going to be the go-to place for not only Cosmos, but all of Microsoft's JavaScript libraries.
Awesome.
So once you've installed that, you can now start to use that inside of your library. We've got ourselves access to a Cosmos client object inside of here. Cosmos client is how you're going to go ahead and talk to the service. And so what we need to do is go ahead and new up a client. And so we can actually do that pretty easily here. In the previous model, we had a relatively complicated constructor where we had a lot of different arguments that you could keep on adding, and we had a lot of optional arguments, and you had to start passing nulls once you started wanting something at the very end and not in the middle. Now we've moved to a central configuration object, which allows you to go ahead and just have the information you need, and you can ignore all the various middle pieces that you might have had in a more complex constructor. The constructor really only needs to have your endpoint and your key attached to it. And that can work for most simple cases, especially if you're working with our local emulator. Once you've got the client, now you're able to go ahead and pass that around. The nice thing with our client is it's a relatively stateless client. It doesn't require an active connection. It manages its own connection cycles underneath the covers. So it doesn't require any patterns along the lines of like doing an initialization step and then holding an active connection. It'll actually manage the lifecycle of those things for you under the covers. And that allows us to do a lot of things like choosing the right region to talk to and things like that for you.
I see.
So once you've actually got a client, now you want to do something interesting with it. So let's go ahead and we want to create a database and a container to actually work with.
Yeah, let's see it in action.
We've done a lot of things to make that a lot simpler inside of this library here. What you can see here is that we actually have this new create-if-not-exists method. What the create-if-not-exists method allows you to do is go ahead and create the container if it doesn't exist or not. We actually saw a lot of customers before going through there and attempting to create and then trying to catch the exception and handle basically the conflict errors. And so we have a lot of these kinds of convenient methods we started adding to the SDK that allows you to have these one-liners that replace very, very common actions we saw people doing. The nice thing with this is you actually get on the response a reference to that database object. And so not only do I actually get the content of what the server created, but now in the SDK, I can use this reference to go ahead and make the next connection. So what you see here is we've got this pattern where you've got this.client.databases, and then I create it. And then off the database, I can now talk to its children with the container.
Okay.
And then off this container object, you can actually go ahead and then access all the items that are on this. So you can actually go ahead and do this.container items, and then you can go ahead and create a new item off of this.
So all the IntelliSense you were talking about?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the VS Code has just an amazing experience for all this IntelliSense, and so that just works with all this. And we've got great type support with all the various things you'd want, like being able to go ahead and pass a type along on a generic if you're using TypeScript. In this case, this is just JavaScript, so we get some IntelliSense, but you can actually, if you use our TypeScript support, pass around like a create item of T, and then pass along the type that you actually expect to get back with that. So now that I actually have a database and container reference to do things with the actual content that I store in my database, because now I've got my two containers for those particular things. What I want to be able to go ahead and do is be able to create and query items.
Yes.
Right.
It's all about querying.
It's all about trying to get the query.
And fast queries.
Yeah, and Cosmos DB is all about trying to have that kind of low latency reads, creates, and queries. And so we've got that great pattern around here as well. You can see to create an item, we're able to go ahead and use this great await pattern here. So rather than having to have the callback-based approach where we go ahead and check the result and then do validation, I'm able to do a very simple just await inside of a try catch and handle the error like that. For querying, it works almost the exact same way as we had seen before, where I go ahead and I create a query iterator underneath the covers. And then on that, I've got different options. In this case, in this example, I'm using toArray. But on this exact same sample, you can see that I'm able to do things like this get async iterator method, which will allow me to get that async iterator for people who want to go ahead and use those more advanced features. Or I can go ahead and just get a page at a time via execute next. And this will return me an array of results from the thing with a continuation token, so that way I can go ahead and resume that query on like the next page of a browser, for instance. So all those features are all here, all your favorite Cosmos features. They didn't leave, we just kind of made them a lot easier to access in this particular case.
Great.
And the nice thing is that since this is just VS Code and JavaScript, we're able to do great things. With the async await pattern, you can see some really great things where you can actually attach a breakpoint to a async method like this one. And then I can go to my browser here, and I've just got a very simple to-do app. It's our favorite type of thing for these things, is to do the to-do apps. And I can actually see here that I'm hitting my breakpoint because when the page refreshes, we're going to go and fetch all those new results. And I can see here that in the results that I'm getting, I actually have this array of results. And in this case, I only had one hello world item created for me already, so you can see that one result inside of there. But we'd get that whole toArray list of results back from that particular breakpoint.
So can we see those results back in the web page?
Yeah, so if we go ahead and hit continue on our breakpoint here, this will finish loading on this page, and hit it one more time. Yeah. And we can actually see that we've got our hello world that we just saw inside of our results page loaded here on the list. We can create new items like hello Sanjay, and then add that. And we're able to go ahead and see the exact same thing here, load up the next time, and there's your name there in lights.
That's great, Chris. So what if the customers want a new feature for the SDK? Where can they get help?
Yeah, so one of the things that we ended up changing, not only with our API model, but with the way that the team itself operates, is we moved a lot more of our development to just being on GitHub. So we're now tracking all of our issues, our features, our sprint planning. It all happens on GitHub. And so we actually have pull requests already coming in from customers. And so customers that wanted just small features, they just send a PR themselves. Other ones have just asked us for the issue, and you can actually see us working on it week over week, trying to go through there and track that. And so it's really been great. We have a lot more kind of back and forth interactions with our customers now that we're kind of going with a GitHub-focused development for our JavaScript.
I see. So when they go to GitHub, how easy is it for them to get to exact thing that you're talking about? What do they search for?
If they go to GitHub, they can go ahead and check out the Azure-Cosmos-JS GitHub repo.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's as easy as going through here and just clicking on new issue. and then you'll go ahead and be able to immediately get feedback from the team in the next day or two generally.
Thank you so much for this great information, and it's great to see your passion as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching this microlearning readiness video about Azure Cosmos DB. To learn more about this and other topics, please go to azure.com/cosmosdb. Please stay tuned for more videos.